Narcissism is a serious personality disorder. You ask any victim that's been on the receiving end if they don't think it's serious and see what reaction you get. There are too many terms that are used which cause people to think it's something less serious. So there is always going to be narcissists on the planet. How do you deal with it? You learn to recognize what we are.
I just wanted to say thank you. You really helped to kind of save my life in a certain way. And the reason I brought you on is because I talk about cults on my channel, which to me is the same as being in an abusive relationship with a narcissist, a sociopath. And I wanted to invite you on to inform the audience of this most important subject. So with that background, could you please tell people a little bit about you and how you came to be a narcissistic psychopath? Friends, welcome back. This is interview number 9 with HG Tudor. And of course, we assume that you've listened to the previous 8 interviews and or already know who HG is. But in case you don't, HG, could you please introduce yourself? And also, how have you been since the YouTube takedown, quote unquote?
Hello, Doug. Thank you for inviting me back. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is HG Tudor, which is a pseudonym, and I'm a narcissistic psychopath that's educating the world about narcissism and psychopathy, explaining the viewpoint of my kind, and a fascinating viewpoint it is. Thank you for asking about the YouTube channel, and also thank you very much for the support that you exhibited at the time when I dealt with that glitch. Naturally, the situation was that I was reading excerpts from Tom Bauer's Revenge, which was of interest to many people because they couldn't access it themselves because the book was not available in the United States and Canada and I think also Australia. And rather than just sitting there and reading it out as if it was Jack and Ori or, story time with Nanny, I was there providing you with a layered analysis of it all, evaluating the evidence, pointing out where certain things hadn't been mentioned, the allegations about her being a yacht girl, all that type of stuff. And of course, explaining to people what these interactions all meant. So it was really a masterclass in understanding narcissism by beauty sleep that I woke to notification that there was a number of copyright strikes against me and my channel would be terminated in 7 days.
Fun.
Yeah, so I contacted the relevant people because you're given a contact email address and explained to them, look, this is done on the basis of fair use. This isn't a bare recording of it. In the same way, if you're going to study Shakespeare's Hamlet, you have to read the whole thing. You can't just say, well, let's just talk about his one soliloquy without context of what all of that means. Why on earth is he contemplating suicide? What's all that about? Well, you wouldn't know unless you'd read about the fact that his mother Gertrude had married his uncle, etc. So you need to read the whole thing. So I explained to them it's fair use, that this was done to educate people about narcissism. That also the offending material is less than 2% of the videos on my channel, and that it would rather be a somewhat draconian response for the channel to be lost. I also had basically gained the upside, namely the bulk of the views had already occurred and everything that's associated with that. So I proposed that the most appropriate way was that if they withdrew the copyright strikes, I would agree that I wouldn't keep the offending material in place, nor would I put it back up again. And so they were very fair in the sense of they recognized that there was an interest in the work, but they wanted to protect the copyright. And they also recognized that I had a legitimate channel that was doing good. So we reached an accord where I said, I'll take the videos down. So your aim of protecting copyright has been achieved. I've already achieved my aim of thousands upon thousands of people listening to it and everything associated with that. This will preserve my channel. So there we are. And then they did as we agreed. I removed them. They then wrote to YouTube and explained, we now remove all of our copyright complaints. Please remove the copyright strikes. And we waited. And then as the deadline approached, nothing happened. And the channel was still there. I thought, okay. And then as it got to what was roughly 7 days from when I received the first notification, nothing happened. So, and of course, the part of Europe I was in was 9 hours ahead of California. So I was expecting that as soon as it got into the 7th day at sort of 12:01 a.m., which had been just over 9 a.m. where I was, boom, the channel would go, and it didn't. Anyway, I was then noticing that I was busy with the personal engagement, but I could see I was getting notifications from people saying, "Where's your channel gone?" And so I thought, okay, it's been pulled, and there was nothing I could do at the time. And so then the following day, when I was able to, I explained to people via the blog. And interestingly, I have 3 other channels, a small one.
Wow.
Yeah, so I have Treasure Trove, where I do readings. I have my original Knowing the Narcissist YouTube channel that I first started in 2016, that just sits there. I don't really do anything with it now because I have the Ultra channel. And then I have a Spanish channel, and they hadn't gone. They were still there. So it enabled me to then not only utilize the blog to get a message out there to say to people, look, this is what has happened, but then think, okay, for the time being, before I have to lawyer up about this, I will use the existing channel. So I did. And of course, people immediately went across there, and the subscribers shot up by about, I think, 15,000 in 24 hours.
Yeah.
And then people on Twitter were galvanized. And of course, there were many people that thought, well, is Harry's wife behind this because you're a thorn in her side? Now, there was nothing that obviously directly came from her. There's a possibility that her or some of her supporters grassed me up to the relevant agency. That could be the case. Or their enforcement arm, understandably, goes on YouTube and looks for breaches of material, copyright material. And anyway, period of time passed. There was activity on Twitter. Other YouTubers who I've mentioned before, including your good self, were talking about the issue. And consequently, it was actually you that notified me about the return of the channel, because on, I think it was the Monday morning, and I saw an email flash up from you saying, congratulations, my friend, on the return of your channel.
I have to give credit to a commenter on the video that I put up about you that was so fast, and I sent it over right to you. So whoever that commenter was, they deserve the credit. Wow. So that's funny, though, that I actually found out before you did, because I thought you'd be the first one on that, panicking that you're channel.
Here's the interesting thing, though. YouTube neither tells you that your channel is gone, it just goes.
Wow.
And they don't tell you it's come back. Albeit, several hours later, I got a tweet from YouTube, the YouTube account on Twitter, saying the issues have now been resolved. But they don't actually email you. They email you to say you've got copyright strikes, but they don't email you. And there is quite a peculiarity with it, because my old channel became demonetized 2019, and I didn't know why. And they give you a very amorphous explanation. And I did a bit of rooting around on a forum, and somebody very kindly explained it's because you use static images. It's meant to be a video thing. And I think, right, okay, so the fact is, many people like to listen to my work when they're taking the dog for a walk, exercising, driving the car, going to sleep, cleaning the house, folding the laundry, having sex with their partner. Well, maybe not so much that one, but they like to listen. Okay, so you don't need to look at the screen. So, okay, fair enough. Anyway, following this, my Spanish channel hit the threshold to be monetized. So I applied for it. And it came back saying, no, because it's not original content. And it was like, well, it is. It's my content, but translated into Spanish. So it is the original works. I left it a month, and then I applied again, not changing anything. And this time it went through. I then thought, shall I just see if my old channel will remonetize? I didn't change anything about that channel, put it through, boom, it's remonetized.
Really?
Yeah, so they almost seem to have an arbitrary approach to their own systems, which is interesting.
Thanks for the good insight. I didn't know that. And by static images, HG, are you talking about just those really cool images that you put up?
Thumbnails.
Wow, man.
See, it's also interesting, isn't it? Because I know that as a video platform, so there are some people who go to great, the people who do, for instance, the fan fiction Star Wars stuff, which is really good. And they create little mini films and they put a lot of effort into it, and you have people who are filmmakers. They're creating this. They are the actual people who work in the industry. And then you get a lot of other YouTubers who are amateur in nature, and often it's just a talking head. And you think to yourself, okay, so you see somebody who's there who's talking, but they're, you know, nodding, and you see their facial expression. That's not that different really from a static image. Because after a while, you just think, yeah, I can see them on the screen, and I occasionally see their facial expressions, but I'm not seeing anything more. But apparently that's okay. But anyway.
That's bizarre. That doesn't, yeah. Static image. You know, another thing, HG, that I was thinking of is you clearly would have boosted the sales of the book that you were reading, and you could have claimed fair use because you used the whole book, but you made commentary on it, which is exactly what fair use is. So you actually had a case to argue that, but like you said, you can't.
Indeed, there was.
Another thing is you lost all that work, man. I mean, you can't sit there and fill out 88 forms, you know, for each claim. And that was a whole body of work. I thought you took that pretty well. Like, hey, I'm willing to let it go. I mean, you helped boost the sale of the books, and that took you how many weeks and how many fucking hours to put that thing together? That's just gone. You know? It
wasn't a case of me letting it go and taking it well, because I looked at it and thought, look, I was annoyed by that action, but I'd already got in place my contingencies, which were to appeal against it. If necessary, I would have lawyered up, and I had briefed a lawyer. We just didn't need to take any action in terms of contacting YouTube about it. I had the old channel as a backup, and I thought to myself, if they had, because what can actually happen is they take down not only the one channel, but all associated channels and ban you from YouTube for life, which has happened to some people. And so I thought, well, if that's the case, I had means that I would be able to work around that. And also I would have perhaps decided, right, I would do more on Facebook with my videos and place them there, for instance, do more on Instagram and so forth. So there were contingencies to ensure that people would still be able to access all of my information. But YouTube is an important platform because of the reach that's associated with it, and a lot of hard work. I wouldn't lose the videos, of course, because they're all backed up. So I keep all of those, so that there wouldn't be a case of losing 3,000 videos all of a sudden. But it was just the annoyance of thinking, having built up at that juncture, I had 137,000 subscribers or such like. The thing is, of course, the beauty of this is you gain prominence, more people heard about it, and of course it fits into ultimately an important issue about being able to articulate views and freedom of speech, that although I was not quashed for what I was saying in the strictest sense of it being about freedom of speech, their failure to abide by their own system, which is this: rather than we have to arbitrate on it, we want you and the complainant to sort it out between yourselves, which we did, and promptly and in a timely fashion. And yet, despite doing what they asked of us, I lose my channel, albeit temporarily. That is a restriction on free speech because you're not abiding by your own systems. However, the upside of it was that clown Boozy thought, hip hip hooray, HG Tudor has gone. Oh no, not at all. And of course it just meant that more people found out about it. I've got more people come across because of the likes of yourself and the body language guy and other people, Tug, that umbrella guy, and other people mentioning the channel. So other people, I've not heard of this guy, but hey, let's have, oh, this is great material. This is fantastic. Trevor Cult MC, the former soldier. So all people like that, and many others besides.
TL Strangelove.
Exactly, TL Strangelove. And so that enabled to come back stronger, and of course poke Boozy in the eye and just say, no, still here. And of course he's running around with his own issues at the moment, continuing to be the idiot that he is, and is now on the receiving end of a lawsuit from Nate. So he'll have to deal with that, because he claims that he's there on the side of dealing with people that are involved in hate. He doesn't understand the meaning of the word, but regularly engages in himself, trying to target people and close them down. What he does is an unlawful interference with people's legitimate business, because what he does is he is the determinant of what he says is hate, and he then utilizes people's personal data without their consent to compile reports. And he's breaching the GDPR regulations in Europe left, right, and centre. And it's only a time before someone like the Information Commissioner or the relevant body in the EU will do something about that, because he's holding on to people's data. And when I've spoken about the supposed reports that he's generated, a child could have written those. They have the forensic power of a piece of wilted celery. The methodology of them is questionable. The objectivity of them is highly suspect, and he's not upfront and transparent about who's commissioning these things as well. So it's no wonder that he attracts so much criticism out there, alongside some blind acolytes that go along with it all because it suits their agenda. But there's a huge body of people that see him for what he is. People have been asking me, stick him under the Tudorscope, but I'm largely loath to give too much attention to him, to be honest.
No, I understand that. And hey, the bigger you get, the more detractors you're going to have. And it's funny, HG, because we talked just in the last interview. I'm like, if anybody's going to get censored or taken down first, it's definitely going to be me. What are you talking about? There's nothing racist, sexist. There's nothing that at all that you're talking about. I had no idea you were getting attacked, but congratulations, by the way, on beating me to the punch. Welcome back too, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, of course, it was a copyright issue rather than being for anything.
Right.
Anybody at YouTube that would look at my videos, and you do get a human, for instance, I think I mentioned before, when I was commenting on Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, every single video about Amber Heard, as soon as it was uploaded, with the monetization, it came up limited ads. Why? Because it mentioned Amber Heard. And you'd have to ask.
Really?
Yep. It was an automatic thing that they must have done with their algorithm, that as soon as Amber Heard was mentioned, bing, it goes to limited ads. So you ask for a review, so a human being watches it, and then it will go green, full ads, because they've realized there's nothing in there like hate speech. There's nothing in there that's contravenes the community guidelines. Everything on my channel is about narcissism, period. It is about explaining narcissism, either the pure pieces about it or utilizing situations, as I did yesterday, of showing an incident involving a police officer and a driver and asking people, do you think there's a narcissist here? What do you think is going on? If there is one, which type do you think it is? And it's all about utilizing famous people for the purposes of explaining what's really going on, and so they can understand that person's behavior better. So, of course, I'm launching, I launched earlier today the situation with Alan Levine from Maroon 5, and the fact that he can't keep it in his trousers. And it's useful because people want to understand why does this guy do this? Now, there are other people that think, I've always thought that he's a bit of a douche. I've always thought he's an asshole, that type of thing. And why would they engage in this behavior? Now, without preempting whether he is or isn't, the whole point of doing these things is, one, it helps people understand those behaviors, and two, it enables people to learn more about narcissism using real life examples. And people find that the most effective way, because no matter how good one communicates the various concepts, when you can see it being played out in a video or a news report, it's far easier people to marry behavior with explanation vis-a-vis narcissism. And that's why. And with Harry's wife, she pops up so regularly, it would be remiss of one not to utilize her. So yeah, but the channel goes from strength to strength. So great news.
Congratulations, by the way, man. You work your freaking ass off, so you deserve it. And then, you're educating people via the that's what gets people's attention too. They would they're on the world, these people are on the world stage, and people can be it's kind of a good way to sneak in the subject of narcissism that might not otherwise touch them. Because like you said, we've covered this a million times on the interviews. Oh, he's just a douchebag. Oh, he just has 5 dicks. Oh, he sleeps around. They don't kind of get the importance of a narcissist and kind of
that's right.
what they're dealing with.
Exactly. And of course, there are plenty of instances where I determine that the individual is not, and explain why they're not. And it's just as important to understand that. But what we have is, it's a form of accountability in a way, because it enables people to understand, that's what's driving that behavior. I now understand what it is, rather than being left in the dark. And also, this channel, it saves lives and livelihoods.
Damn right it does.
My inbox is chock full with people expressing those very sentiments. It's not showing some fluffy kitten jumping out of a hedge and scaring somebody, which, that's fine if you like watching those things. It's all good fun for you. But this is material which Yes, I know it entertains some people, and I know there are many people who watch because they can't stand Harry's wife and they enjoy hearing my sardonic observations about her. But also by the same token, there are many people who didn't know anything about narcissism until they accessed that series. There were many people who didn't realize that they were in the clutches of a narcissist until they watched that series. So for all of the misplaced allegations of hate, and it is quite hilarious seeing the simpletons when they come along and go, "You're a hater, you're a racist." And as I made an observation in a video yesterday, no, you're calling me racist, but you can't see me for it. You know, I might be a particularly well-spoken black person.
Good point.
You don't know that. So,
you know, HG, speaking of, while we're on the subject of famous narcissists, would there be any greater, i.e. self-aware narcissist that you'd be able to point to on the world stage, either living or perhaps from the past, that we might all know?
What do you mean in sort of just general terms of talking about them today?
Yeah, any examples at all that we'd recognize of this 1%er, this greater? First of all, for new listeners, could you explain what the greater narcissist is in your terminology? And then also, I'd love to know personally if you could point to anybody that has that skill, you know, so to speak.
Okay, so the greater narcissist, I classify very quickly: lesser, mid-range, greater, and ultra. I'm the ultra. And greater narcissists are aware of what they are. Now, they don't necessarily talk in terms of, oh, I need fuel. They will have their own sort of terminology for that in their world. But they know what they are. They know that they manipulate people. They know that they get off on the reaction that's associated with that. They know that they delight in playing with people. They know that they seek out the need for control, the receipt of fuel, or a reaction, as they might describe it. They recognize that that powers them, edifies them. They are aware that they're manipulative. They know that they have no conscience. They know that they have no sense of guilt. But what they don't do is go around telling everybody this, because to do so would be a transference of power. So they have an awareness. So examples, well, Bill Clinton, he's an upper greater, so a master weaver of, you know, huge charisma. He knows exactly what he is, and he knows that he's a puppet master, and he knows in terms of that he's manipulating people for his own games. And as an upper greater, there is that sharpened mind with regard to the subtleties of the way that he does it, so that he makes you feel that you're hugely important. People will often talk about when they meet him that he would make you feel like you were the only person in the room. And he's thinking 4 or 5 steps ahead as to what's going to go on and so forth. So he's an upper greater. David Bowie he was a middle greater. So narcissist, but knew what he was. But fall is to the entertainer, where you often find your entrepreneurs and your entertainers fall more within the middle greater. Charismatic, sometimes charismatic in a mysterious way. You can often find some of your cult leaders from your experiences. Where they're aware narcissists, they fall within middle greater. Upper lesser type A are often unaware cult leaders. Again, charismatic, superficial, but you would have that. Interestingly, Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, he falls in as middle greater. Politicians tend to usually be lower greater because they tend to be a bit more a little bit more brutish. So lower greater is where your aware military narcissists sit, and your politicians and certain business individuals. But with Johnson, he played to the crowd a lot. There's a lot of entertaining, but he knows full well what he is. He knows he doesn't give a shit about people, and he finds it hilarious. You know, anybody that turns around when he's told that he earns £250,000 a year from a column and goes chicken feed shows the contempt that he has for ordinary people. So he sits in there. Madonna, she's middle greater as well. Knows what she is. Knows that she plays these roles that's done in order to draw people to her, that she recognizes as an entertainer, that she holds that. So again, has a particular type of charisma, utilizes entertainment for the purpose of controlling people, knows that she's a chameleon and plays upon that. Think about all the various types, various images that she's shown us over the years. So she fits within that. Who else might I think of? An historical one, Isaac Newton.
Really?
Yeah, he was lower greater, so he knew what he was about. But he also, notwithstanding his very scientific findings, he was involved quite politically in England at the time.
That's right.
And was actually quite, it was a particularly uncaring individual. And he carried out some quite sort of particular enforcement roles for the king at the time, and did so willingly in full knowledge of the way that he was behaving and what he would do. So that's a historical one. Alexander the Great.
Yeah, super interesting, man.
He was one also in terms of being a greater, knew full well what he was, knew about wanting to sort of conquer everything and so forth. Yeah. So you will find invariably he was lower greater, military conqueror, dismissive. He has that sexual fluidity, of course, that many narcissists have, but was well aware that he was there to ensure that people did what he wanted, and that the world was his extension, that the world belonged to him, the creation of empire, and he knew why he was doing it as well. So those are just a few that occur to me.
That was super interesting. You've got to do a video on that, because I've never heard, and you just reeled those off. I would agree with every one of those, man. That was super interesting.
There are other ones that I could mention, but I don't want to, because
that's fantastic.
They form the subject of some of my video analyses.
Sure. Just that alone was fucking awesome, man. Hey, HG, how about we jump down to like the mid-range narcissist, and also,
yeah,
in regard to that, so now we have someone that's not aware they're a narcissist, and what do you know? They happen to be the ones running around thinking that they are super kick-ass Hyoka empaths. Why is it the middle mid-range narcissist in particular that is so blinded to who they really are?
They have to be blinded because they don't have the narc-craft, if I can put it that way, to achieve. So your greater invariably has huge access to resource, oodles of charisma, that Machiavellian mind that's plotting and planning, and therefore in effect is granted that awareness but won't give the game away. Mid-rangers come up short. Some do have appreciable talent, there's no doubt about that. It's evident that they do. So you'll get, for instance, some who they're very good actors, they're brilliant pop stars, they write catchy tunes and ditties and are very famous for it. Playwrights, authors, some of them are effective politicians. Others, you find them in business, and they actually do have some ability to back up what they're doing. But a lot of mid-range narcissists, and some which are quite famous, it's very much a case of making such a little go a very long way.
Yeah.
That you look at them and you think, and I have to mention her again because she's such an obvious example, Harry's wife.
Damn, that's a perfect example. She's taken nothing and taken it all the way, dude. Nothing.
Exactly. So in a sense, you've got to say, hey, well done. You've become fairly wealthy and very well known. But the other side of things, you fucked it up.
That's true.
If your narcissism had behaved in a different way and you basically bolted on to the royal family, you were made for life.
Yeah,
but
that's
now,
right.
You're reviled by many people, and those bridges, because your narcissism can't handle it, you're burning them, and the A-listers turning their back on them. And what have you got to fall back on? You're a mediocre actress. Can you write? No. Are you a tech entrepreneur? No. Are you a bananatarian? You'd like to think so. Not. Are you a politician? You'd like to think so. You wouldn't last 5 minutes because you get hurt, and you'd be outflanked by all of those sharks that be swimming around on the hill, etc. So it's completely different. What have you got that you can offer? Are Can you write a screenplay? No. You think you could, but you can't. You know, how's your writing going? Oh, we had the bench of stench, didn't we? You thought it was a book for children. No children would want to read it at all. It was a vanity project. And so, as I call her, the Duchess of Industrial Beige, she has nothing to offer. So what happens is, her narcissism, if you could imagine the narcissism as a separate entity, it sits there and it goes, right, we need to motivate this person to go and get the prime aim. So we needed to control these people, get fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. How are we going to do that? Because we're looking in the locker here, and all we've got is D-list actress. Right. We've got to make her believe that she's going to be a politician. We've got to make her believe that she's an author. Wow. We've got to make her believe that she's a fashion icon. Wow. And so, blinded to the fact that she's not, she believes she's all of these things because the narcissism is telling her that. And it's the same way that you see it with things like The X Factor and American Idol.
Yeah.
The freak show part, as I call it at the beginning. Okay. Some of those people are just basically, they're game for a laugh. I know I can't sing, but I'm going to go and stand in front of Simon Cowell, and I want my 15 minutes. It's good fun. Then there are some people who are clearly mentally unwell, okay? And then there are a group who are narcissists, who their narcissism tells them that they've got the vocal range of Lana Del Rey, and they actually sound like a mating cat being strangled by a psychopath. And so they go up there and they think they can sing, and you know that they stand at home in front of the mirror.
Yes, you do.
And the delusion created by their narcissism, it's done because they have to believe in it. They're not able to see that they're deficient. Now, occasionally the mid-ranger gets the mid-range reality gap, where all of a sudden it's a little bit like the fear when you've had that weekend, and you've been polishing off the E's and, snorting like a trooper and chugging the ale. And then Tuesday, it feels like, I've seen it with people that have described it, it feels like the world is coming to an end as they suffer that downer. It's a little bit similar for the mid-range narcissist reality gap, that they suddenly, as a consequence of glitching with the narcissism, they get a momentary glance of, oh my God, I'm not the thing that I think that I am. And it's like a full horror for them. And then it goes away as the narcissism comes back in. Wow. So it's a little bit like imagining there's a matrix, and all of a sudden you see behind it, you see Lawrence Fishburne there with his mirror shades on and showing you, actually, this is all a construct. Bang, it's gone again. The narcissism has to do this. It has to blind them to what they are, because they have to have that utter unshakable conviction that they're brilliant. And if you think about it, there are some empathic individuals, of course, who are good politicians and stars of stage and screen. It's not all art preserve, but often you might have looked at somebody, and I know when I've heard people talking about it, and they go, there is no way that I could have worn that outfit, gone on the stage and pranced up and down in front of those people. I'd have felt like a complete bell end.
But they don't see that. They can do stuff like that.
They just think, everybody loves me. They're clapping and they're cheering, and they're drinking in this fuel. And the fact that they're so brazen about it. And, for instance, the sledging that goes on, the shithousery. So think about, what is it Jake Paul and
good example.
Who, they engage in the shithousery. I don't know which one of them, or whether it's both of them. I don't really care either. Engages in the But they go and they're given the eyeball, and was it I don't know, KSI or
it's
something?
Jake Paul. It's Jake Paul that kind of the biggest jackass, and then the lesser one is the fighter. Is the other guy? Or actually, I think they're both fighters. I don't know. They're both jackass, but Jake Paul seems like he's the most narcissistic of the two.
Exactly. So he comes out there and he's like, "Ooh, yeah, I'm gonna beat your peasy ass, and you're going down, and all the rest of it." And you think, Jesus. People would look at that and go, seriously, have you heard yourself? You sound like a complete
shit. But he doesn't see that. HG, he doesn't see that. He doesn't hear it. None of that.
He doesn't sit there and think to himself, I know I sound like a complete douche canoe. But hey, it's performance. He seriously believes all of this. Now, there are other people who know that they're playing a role. Okay.
Right. But
they're not narcissists. So they think, I'm just playing a role. That character, is an idiot, but that's just a character, and it earns me a living, so there we are. But a lot of the time, in order to do it so effectively to convince audiences, you truly have to believe.
Yeah.
And that's why narcissists make such good actors and actresses.
Yeah. God damn.
And also, those people that stand up, who are like the demagogues, who stand there and saying, Eurasia is our enemy, we will crush them. The true believers. Whereas other people are going, well, I'm not quite sure that's really right, and I don't want to have a war with them. And they think, why is he? Well, he's utterly convinced. He must be right. He's utterly convinced because his narcissism will not allow doubt in. Because the moment that doubt comes in, what have you got? A loss of control. And that's what the narcissism must stop.
That's great to know, man, because I was just thinking of all the actors that I was surrounded with where I was like, I could never do that. They kind of would do anything to get to the top, and I'm trying to practice my craft and go that route. And I was always jealous of that in a certain way because they were so confident. Like you said, it gives them a pseudo confidence, but it's really good to hear you bring that point home, because they can do certain things that it seems like somebody that kind of was a little bit self-aware, because like you said, hell no, I'm not going on the stage like that. HG, you mentioned earlier too that particularly maybe the mid-range narcissists would have a crashing moment where all of a sudden they realize who they are, then they slip back into the narcissism. Would that be some wound that comes? What would cause that specifically? Where they and how long would that glimpse last for? Just a few seconds or a few hours, and they have to go out and kind of get fuel, like what's that?
Sometimes it can just occur as a it's a glitch in the narcissism, and
for no reason whatsoever, just out of the blue. They could be sitting at home, and
it could be, but more usually it's basically because the narcissism is being taxed, if you will. So fuel levels are plummeting, or that there is sustained wounding. So again, she's a prominent example. Harry's wife has had a really difficult, torrid time just recently. She's stuck in a country that she's basically painted black, the United Kingdom, and all eyes are on the Queen. Now, some people are watching what she's doing, but it's all about Queen Elizabeth II. That's a narcissist nightmare. You're in a country that you perceive can't stand you, and is inhabited by bug-eyed, foam-flecked, swivel-eyed bigots that are all racists, and with a royal family that won't speak to you, although her narcissism's telling her, I don't understand why they're not talking to me. They were the ones that were horrible to me first. Whereas, of course, the royal family is saying, you really think we're going to talk to you after the way you've behaved? But she can't see that. So she's in a country that she perceives as hostile, alongside a family that won't have anything to do with her, or very little to do with her, and it's all mainly about Queen Elizabeth. So her narcissism is fighting and firing on all cylinders to fight against these threats to control again and again and again and again, and instances where her fuel's dropping. So for her, where, if you like, the narcissism's ability is being stretched thin, she may well have had a reality gap moment. Those are the circumstances we're having. So, another narcissist suddenly finds out, his wife leaves him. So there's a loss of the intimate partner primary source. And in that instance of where that occurs, he suffers massive wounding because he is not, he's not been able to stop it. And a huge hole has just been punched in his fuel matrix by that loss. So it causes a real problem for him. And with that, it may well be the case that because of the massive wounding that's occurred, he gets that sudden glimpse of the fact that it's not, he's not what he is. So it's ordinarily, it's the mid-range narcissist that's the one that suffers it.
Yeah.
Because the lesser just cruises through life doing what they want, and they're completely oblivious to their shortcomings. So their narcissism operates in a way, for instance, they think, oh, well, they regard their beer belly as showing a certain joy to be. And, I'm a baldy. Well, that's because I have so many women, because I'm Mr. Sex. And they just are laughably oblivious to it. And so what happens is when they're fueled, they don't suffer any kind of reality gap. They're completely oblivious to the delusions that occur. And of course, with the greater narcissist, the greater can actually point to things and say, I'm a successful public speaker. Look at all these crowds that adore me. Look at the money that I have. And with that total belief, they don't. The delusion with the greater is just more in terms of embellishment and exaggeration rather than out and out complete delusion of ability. They actually do achieve things. So they will, for instance, be wealthy, but will embellish that wealth. So they may be a multimillionaire, but they may claim to be a billionaire, for example, that type of thing. But with the mid-ranger, the problem they have is that they don't have the level of achievement the greater has, and they don't have that sort of out and out, almost in a weird kind of way, almost quite endearing, complete lack of awareness that the lesser has, that is often, I find, quite amusing. And so with the mid-ranger, they have these episodic instances where there is this instance of their narcissistic perspective and the reality diverge rather. And what happens is that they get a glimpse of what he is as opposed to what he believes himself to be. So all of a sudden he gets this reminder, and I say it's a little bit like the fear of you're just a middle salary man. You're not the big swinging dick on the board. And it's almost like this shiver of realization and like, go away, leave me alone. You know, that they suddenly realize that the football career that they thought was going to see them playing in the Premiership and playing in the World Cup, actually, they're not even going to get out of non-league. And so they have this sort of sudden burst of mediocrity. And it can come out of nowhere, but it often is a consequence of the narcissism glitching because it's been taxed so much that it hasn't got enough juice. If it was Star Trek, the dilithium crystals are running out of power. So someone's going to have to turn a phaser on it to ensure that it powers them up again, because that apparently works if the fuel levels have dropped or there's been wounding. So they suffer that reality gap and they get that glimpse. They're not shielded, if you will, by actual achievement the greater has, and they're not shielded by the out and out rampant delusion that lessers have. Lessers are quite hilarious.
Yeah.
They'll wander in with a balding paint and a fat belly with half their teeth missing and going, hey, I'm Mr. Lover Man.
Yep, I know people. I'm thinking of people that, as you're
exactly.
talking.
Who wants a bit of Bubba tonight then, you know? And their delusion powers them in that way. The mid-ranger, because they're passive-aggressive, they don't operate with that outright grandiose overt set of behaviors. And instead, they occasionally, when the narcissism is taxed, get that glimpse. It's a little bit like you're watching something on TV and the signal's interrupted, and the screen goes bzzz. It might only be for a moment, and they get this horrible glimpse of oh my God, that's me. And then it's gone. And they forget about it because the narcissism immediately wipes it clean. But for that moment when it happens, it's like a true horror for them. You'll occasionally see it with them. You might be sat with them and you'll suddenly see. So it's like they've seen a ghost.
You know, it's so interesting listening to you talk about these different categories, which we talk about many times, but you paint them so visually, I can't help but think of all these different people that I know. I'm sure the listener's thinking of certain friends or ex-friends or exes or whatever. You know, HG, is it a truism that if you question that you're a narcissist, you're not one?
Essentially, that's right. Yeah. Because if you're an aware narcissist, you don't have to ask the question. You know what you are. And if you're an unaware narcissist, the narcissism won't let you question it because it can't.
What is it? Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. You get so many questions. So please finish. Yeah.
So an unaware narcissist does not sit at home on his own and go, I might be a narcissist. That just doesn't happen because it won't serve any purpose. So the narcissism doesn't allow it to happen. An unaware narcissist might do this. Say to somebody else, do you think I'm a narcissist? Now, they're not seriously asking the question. They are manipulating.
No shit.
Yeah, because what might have happened is that narcissist's wife has come across the great works of HG Tudor, but has made a mistake of saying to the suspected narcissist, you're a narcissist, here's why. He turns to her and goes, you don't know what you're talking about. And whoever this Tudor fella is, he knows jack shit. And so she goes, no, you are. Argument ensues, but he can't get her to back down. So he asserts control by withdrawal. He storms out of the house. And then she pops up in his mind, and he's reminded of the fact that she's accused him of being a narcissist. He's now in the bar, sat with Hank, and he turns to Hank and he goes, my wife said that I'm a narcissist. That's nonsense. Do you think I'm a narcissist? He's not saying this because all of a sudden he's contemplating that he is. The fact that he's been reminded of his wife has brought her up on the radar. It's reminded him of the accusations. It's a threat to control. He can't assert control over her directly because she's not there. So his narcissism has to do it indirectly by asking his friend, do you think I am a narcissist? His friend goes, hell no, you're not. You're a great guy. Thus,
control asserted. Yeah, control asserted over her.
Over the wife. Job done.
Wow.
Or in some instances, the narcissist might say, having read some material but not seriously contemplating it, go to the intimate partner primary source and middle ranger type B, shriveled walnut bald cowardly bugger goes, I think I'm a narcissist. I need help. And she thinks, oh good, he realizes. No, It's a pity play. It's a pity play. So the lesser and mid-ranger are not allowed. So if you, when you're sat staring out at the firmament as dusk settles over the land with an amaretto sour in your hand, and you think to yourself, might I be a narcissist? The answer is you're not, because you're able to contemplate it away from any other influence.
Right.
But of course, invariably, empathic people often think that they are because they're capable of thinking in grey. We only think in black and white.
Interesting.
You can think in grey. I kind of see some of my behaviors which accords with some of the things that HG talks about. Maybe I'm a narcissist. The fact that you're contemplating that shows you're thinking in shades of grey. Therefore, you're not a narcissist.
Super, super interesting. What is it about, again, particularly the mid-range narcissist, because we know the greater is aware.
Yep.
What is it about the mid-ranger that no matter how much evidence you actually show them, they come across the works of HG Tudor, they know about what that subject is? How come they cannot see that within themselves? What is this construct? What is this mechanism that's so powerful that they have?
Well, it's the narcissism which cannot allow anything to permeate that membrane which tells them what they are, because once it does, it's game over. Okay?
It's just mind-blowing that they can't see it, It leaves other people that aren't narcissists bewildered, as to, because we go and try to show them stuff and they reject it. That's why you can't tell them.
Yeah. Can you speak any other languages apart from English?
No. Well, no, not really.
Okay. So a Russian comes up to you and he starts talking to you in Russian. You haven't the slightest idea what he's saying to you. You can't learn Russian on the spot, okay? And you're not being afforded time to go away and learn Russian to work out what he's saying. You have no idea because you can't understand Russian. Your brain is unable to compute what he's telling you. Now, he's speaking a language which somebody else understands, so he's not talking gobbledygook. But the way that your brain is wired, because you're an English speaker, you can't understand Russian. Okay? The narcissist brain is wired not to understand that they are a narcissist.
That makes sense.
And it's not allowed to go and learn that either. You can go and learn Russian. The narcissist is not allowed ever to learn. So a narcissist can sit and read about narcissism and will go, my God, my wife's a narcissist. But he will not go, fuck, that's me, when he's an unaware narcissist.
Right.
And he can't be granted that awareness. It just doesn't happen.
Wow, that makes so much sense. I love the analogies you use, man, because they really kind of drive home the point and get rid of the confusion.
Here's another one which is more complete. You take a bump on your head. You now perceive yellow as green. The sun is green. Bananas aren't green. Okay. Your friend pulls up in his new Lamborghini, and you go, nice wheels, dude. Hang on, though. Why have you gone for grass green? That's a rather unusual color for a Lambo. And he looks at you and goes, what are you on about, Doug? This is banana yellow. And you go, banana yellow? Bananas are green. And he goes, no, they're not. Well, they are before they get ripe. But besides the point, this is a ripe banana yellow here. And you're going, stop being a clown. It's green. It's yellow. It's green. It's yellow. Jesus, what's wrong with you? So he calls over John. John, what color is this car? Canary yellow. See, it's yellow. It's not, it's green. Are you two on drugs? Imagine how frustrating it is for you, because the way that your brain has been altered is that you cannot perceive yellow. You can only see green. Yet they keep telling you it's yellow. In your world, it's green. And it's the same for the narcissist. No matter how much you say to them, look, you engage in blame shifting, that membrane doesn't let that come through and goes, no, you're the one that engages in blame shifting, and bounces it back. Well, look, I'm going to show you, right? You repeatedly cheat. And then they'll either be, no, I don't. Or if you're actually saying, look, I've got videos of you because I've been set up cameras on our house. And here's you balls deep with the neighbor. Here's you knocking the hip out of Annie No Knickers from down the road. Here's you making the beast with two backs with Angelina, etc. The narcissist will then go, he won't go, right, okay, that means I'm a serial cheat, and that's a hallmark of a narcissist. His narcissism will cause him to do this. What the fuck do you think you're playing at? Putting up cameras in our home. Wow. You're really controlling. There's something wrong with you if you feel that and he completely skips over his infidelity and turns it around and makes it all about what the victim has done. He basically ignores the evidence. And sometimes it's so simplistic as the narcissist. If you say, you sent this text message, look, there's the evidence. The narcissist will take the phone out of your hand, throw it on the floor, and then go, what evidence? And because you're in the next moment, your threat to control has just been dispensed with. I just showed you text. No, you didn't. And the victim, unaware of what they're dealing with, thinks he knows what he's seen.
Right.
No, in his world, it never existed because it's not there any longer. It's a little bit like, I think it was Ray Bradbury who wrote a story where there's an astronaut, and when anybody left the room, he thought that they no longer existed. It's a little bit like what children suffer from before they realize that the person comes back. They think when a child thinks when you've left the room, you're gone, you're dead, in effect. Whereas in this story, Bradbury, this astronaut thought as soon as somebody wasn't there, they no longer ceased to exist. It's like that for the narcissist, that once that information has gone, where they're an unaware narcissist, it never existed. It's wiped clean.
That's so interesting. And again, I'm thinking to people, and you got questions that are just being answered like left and right. Hey, HG, this hour always goes by so fast. And this might be a good question to maybe lead into the next one, because it kind of picks up from a previous interview. Is a narcissist and or a psychopath born that way, or are they created? Is there what is it?
What with the narcissist, they're created.
Created. There's no such thing as a born psychopath or a born narcissist whose brain is already wired like that?
You will have a born psychopath.
Okay.
But not a born narcissist. Narcissist.
Interesting.
And next time I can perhaps go into the greater detail of how that comes about, because there's lots of different scenarios that could cause that to happen.
Perfect, because I was just going to ask you, and we'll end it off there, about the 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock analogy. So when we pick it up next time, let's talk about the formation, and then we'll talk about how those two are so close yet so far apart. I can't wait to ask you about that, because that'll take us down a whole nother avenue. My friend, I really appreciate you giving me your time.
It was a pleasure. If I may, Doug, another thing I'd like to flag with you for next time, and drawing on your own experience, is to talk about sort of the anatomy of a cult and the interaction with narcissists. So you can tell me about your experiences, and then I touched on it a little bit earlier on about middle graders and upper lesser A, but also to talk about how and who is who within the hierarchy, and who are the true believers, and are they always true believers, and why do other people get sucked in, and so forth. So perhaps we could touch on that as well. We could do scores of episodes, I think, because there's such a lot of material from that, but we could start to embrace all of that as well next time, I think.
Freaking fantastic, man. I'm so glad that you just popped up that idea. Absolutely, we'll do that. So great. I guess that'll be, who knows when we'll do that, but we could do that maybe for the next interview, because that really just got me excited.
Sure.
Definitely.
We can touch on those three things that we've mentioned, and I'm sure that the cult thing will be a recurring theme. So
sure. And we can even cover, if you want to, I think you were mentioning it, like within Scientology, we can cover some of the hierarchy, and that would
absolutely.
Scientology and or any cult would be great. HG, something that people know, and we can even point out famous characters within that cult to show where they are at and go at all sorts of avenues.
Yeah,
Great idea, man.
And also touch upon where there are certain instances which are, if you like, clear cults, and then there are other ones which are perhaps not as obvious as you might think.
Right. Fantastic. Okay, so for people that would like to reach for your works or interested in learning more about narcissism, could you please tell them A, what you offer, and B, where they can find you? And as usual, I'm going to leave a link in the description to everything that HG is about to say.
Okay, so if you want to access my further work, you can do so either on my YouTube channel, which is HG Tudor, Knowing the Narcissist, the Ultra, just search for that, or my blog, narcissistic.com. I have a presence as Knowing Narcissists on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. The two main outputs of my work are the blog and YouTube. You have access to thousands of articles and videos, all gratis, which tell you so much about narcissism. If you want to engage my services to know whether you're dealing with a narcissist or whether you're an empath, or to be coached through certain scenarios, and I've helped thousands upon thousands of people this way, you can see the links in the video descriptions on YouTube or in the menu bar at narcissistic.com to utilize the narc detector, the empath detector, audio consultations, and more besides. And finally, don't forget about the Knowledge Vault, which contains over 200 items which tell you more about various facets of narcissism, how to deal with it, and various educational and entertaining packages in there. There really is a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
From me.
Yes, there is. And my friend, I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate the time, and I'm super, super stoked to do the next one already.
Absolutely. Always pleased to speak to you, Doug.
Thanks, man. Take care, brother.
You too.